The Vermont Historical Society of the 21st century is driven by a commitment to preserve the collective history of the people of Vermont. We are guided by the belief that an inclusive perspective of the past must pursue historical complexity, encompass multiple voices and lived experiences, and truth. Through a variety of learning methods and technologies, we enable all people to experience the power of history and find their place within Vermont's overall narrative. Let's explore some of the ways we are working to accomplish this goal.
At the Vermont Historical Society, we use our collections to help demonstrate to people that the past helps inform today's present. Vermont is an incredible place, full of diverse stories and diverse voices, and that has been the case throughout its history. One example of the way we're doing this is by filming short collections videos. We're taking objects out of storage and bringing them to life with a history of who made them and how they used them and where they were taken from. In other videos, we go all around the state and we find out where history happened in every corner, and we tell you about the history that has happened in your own backyard and your own neighborhood. Going forward, we're really excited to continue collecting the history we all experience every day. We just received a grant from the Institute of Museum and Library Services to collect Vermonters' experiences throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. Over the next couple of years, we'll be recording oral histories and publishing them and making them available to future researchers. In much the same way that we looked to our collections to tell us what life was like during the 1918 influenza pandemic, researchers of the future will look to the archive we're going to be creating to learn what life was like in Vermont during this period of history. One of the most important things we can do is to say to everyone, your story is part of Vermont's story, because we believe that an understanding of the past changes lives and builds better communities.
The Vermont Historical Society has more than 30,000 objects that we've been collecting for more than 180 years. Since museum collection practices and our mission focus have changed over time, one of my biggest tasks is going through the collection to not only make sure we have what we think we have, but that we know what stories our objects tell. This is important because it not only allows us to share these stories in exhibitions and our online catalog through programming, it also helps us identify which stories are missing. Historically, museums tended to focus on the big names and events in history and not collect things related only to marginalized groups or uncomfortable topics. As an example, we have almost 900 objects relating to the Civil War, but no objects related to the Latino experience in Vermont and very few related to the 1918 pandemic. Now, we want to present a full image of Vermont's history, including everyone that we can in order to create the most complete Vermont story that we can. We were recently able to use this knowledge of what we're missing to close a gap in our collection, that of women's health care. Women-specific health care has been largely ignored, partially just for societal reasons and partially because much of it was and still is considered taboo. But by identifying this as a story we were failing to tell, we've been able to acquire some objects from a range of time periods that help fill that void, from early contraceptives to period products and tools from a wartime maternity hospital.
VHS, in collaboration with Vermont State Archives and the Vermont Department of Libraries, is planning a centralized digital platform for access to non-governmental collections related to Vermont history and culture. Building a centralized space for discovering the many collections housed within Vermont's small museums, libraries, and historical societies has vast implications for equity in terms of access and the sharing of diverse stories. These collections tell the stories of Vermont's essential role in the Underground Railroad, the rural LGBTQIA+ experience, and social justice through art, to name just a few.
One of our core philosophies at the Department of Libraries is the belief that libraries are for everyone, and that includes digital resources as well. The implementation of this platform can help democratize access to these vital collections. The platform will be an important step toward broadening access for folks who previously could not share their collections beyond the four walls of their library. Mobile digitization equipment and training for the use of that equipment means that people who may be unfamiliar with imaging and standards can add their collections to a shared space accessible by everyone with a computer and internet connection. This project is a bridge across the digital divide.
In creating a vibrant space for users to explore, we hope more people will see themselves reflected in Vermont's history.
One way to get to inclusive and expansive history is at the local level. We are lucky in Vermont to have over 190 local historical societies and museums who can help us with that. The work that we do for and with these organizations is aimed at helping them be successful and sustainable, promoting shared stories and approaches to the work, and keeping history as a cornerstone of all our communities. We do this through initiatives such as our active collections work, which aims to promote object and archival collections with greater impact that better reflect the communities they represent, and by doing so help to alleviate the burden of overcrowded, at-risk, and abandoned collections. Through workshops and resources, we are providing tools and guidance to help organizations identify their most important collections, devote proper resources to them, and utilize them more effectively. I recently visited an organization who had participated in an active collections workshop. They have really taken it to heart and done some amazing work on assessing and prioritizing their collections, including determining their historic house with the most important item in their collection and undertaking inventory and storage projects for their textiles. Active collections is really about the future of the past, making room for the 20th century, actively making choices at the local level, and working towards sustainability with limited resources.
In Vermont, educators are seeking additional resources to teach state and local history in relevant, inclusive ways that allow all students to see and place themselves in Vermont's story. The Vermont Historical Society has the resources to engage students in making connections between themselves and the past. The Vermont History Explorer website is one avenue for sharing materials with students and teachers. Students can examine primary sources, like the memoirs of Jeffrey Brace, a poster from the 1918 influenza epidemic, or a child's account of Tropical Storm Irene, to understand how Vermonters have overcome challenges and persevered through hard times. Students learn that their own choices and actions can make a difference today and in the future.
The Vermont Historical Society preserves the past to inform our present and future. We've adapted and updated our approach since our founding in 1838. In our third century, the work is more important than ever. We seek to involve our public in conversation and reflection about our shared past. We invite your participation, your engagement, and your support. Together, we can present Vermont's story as an inspiration for all Vermonters and Vermonters at heart.